Welcome to your Thursday edition of Fantasy Football Wrap-Up. I'm your host, Blake Randall, with my co-host, Jesse Geary.
Woo-hoo.
All right. Big news today, Thursday. The biggest news of the day.
Big news.
Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke Elliott.
Unfortunately.
His suspension is back on as the court denies his injunction.
For now.
The Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals on Thursday denied Ezekiel Elliott and the NFL Players Association's request for an injunction pending appeal in Elliott's case. The Cowboys running back is set to begin his suspension starting this Sunday when they play Atlanta, and is set to return Week 16 when they play the Seattle Seahawks, which is, in terms of fantasy football, for most leagues, is championship day. Now, if you're in an ESPN league, you mostly only 4 teams make it out there. You play the 2 weeks each round. But anyways, most leagues finish up in Week 16. Do you hold on to Zeke and wait until, hope for your playoff run? Do you trade him, drop him? What do you do? What's your thoughts?
My key word on that whole situation was pending. The suspension is it's back on. Pending some sort of emergency stay. He's done pulled this out of nowhere like 4 weeks in a row or 5 weeks in a row. As a Zeke owner, I want to see what happens before I go thinking irrationally. It is tough coming back Week 16 against Seattle, but Seattle hasn't played well. And if he comes back, he's 100% the starter, and I would start in championship weekend. As at worst, my flex. I don't know. I want to see what happens with Zeke.
Hopefully Zeke owners at this point picked up either Alfred Morris or Darren McFadden.
Right.
Morris should be listed as the starter from the get-go, and then Darren McFadden should get sprinkled in there, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, they said that Morris will start and McFadden, and who's the other one?
McFadden's the school you teach.
That is where I teach. I work too much. McFadden and whoever their other back is going to be sprinkled in.
Smith.
They're going to be sprinkled in.
He'll be put in there a little bit, but I don't see him doing too much.
So I think they're going to just test it out this week. It's Atlanta. They're at poor run defense. I'm starting Alfred Morris because basically it's between him and Abdullah. Even though Abdullah's playing the Browns, they've been good. Anyway, I'm starting Alfred Morris and holding on to Zeke because I can hold a bench spot for Zeke even though I have Morris. So either way, it's a kind of a win-win as long as Morris ends up getting a good bulk of games.
Yeah, and my only opinion on that, if you have Zeke, hold him, reserve a bench spot for him just because of the talent. Just hopefully the rest of your team can pick up the slack. Or, if you can somehow, get a trade in, if you don't have a trade deadline in your league, if you can dwindle a trade from somebody for Zeke that's desperate for a running back, at that point, into, for a better team, there could be good teams out there that, might need a running back, but they're still all right as they get along, trade them. But me personally, I would keep Zeke, if your team's doing all right still, playoff contender. A lot of teams do have trade deadlines. Our league does not have a trade deadline, but usually trade deadlines are either happening this week or next week, mostly in most leagues.
Okay.
So other news out there today, David Johnson is getting his cast removed on Monday. So
that's interesting.
When does he come back?
Does he come back?
Does he
Cardinals
come back?
Suck.
I don't think that he's going to come back. I think they're just going to roll with Adrian Peterson the rest of the way.
They should. You
might as well at this point.
Churn those old legs as much as they can.
Yeah.
Turn them to butter.
So Emmanuel Sanders practiced in full today with the ankle injury that he's had.
Yeah,
Julio Jones sidelined again today in practice. Is that something people should worry about? All Julio owners will be watching out tomorrow, but usually this happens like every year.
Julio's kind of he gets those extra days because he's a superstar receiver and he's been around so long he doesn't need the practice reps. I expect him to go through the walkthrough and play.
Yeah. But Chris Hogan, he missed practice today, but I wasn't expecting him to play this week with the shoulder injury.
No.
That sidelined him for the last couple of weeks.
Week or 2 more for him.
I see him coming back. They play Denver this weekend, but he's not going to play at all.
No.
He comes back the following week, probably week 11. I would see that happening. But I got him picked him up in our league because one of our paranoid players dropped him. And I think I went from rag to riches on that one. I think that's a good benefit for me in the long run, for a nice little playoff stretch right there.
Right. If he's there, pick him up. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. So, let's see what other news that we got here. Michael Thomas is limited in practice, Saints receiver. T.Y. Hilton added to the injury report with a groin injury. So
those dang groins.
And then the Patriots get back Martellus Bennett. That's a big boy there.
That situation was funny because as a Packers fan, I was super excited to get Bennett. I was thinking he'll come in, him and Aaron Rodgers will click. He'll help in the run game with his blocking. Then I go on here and see that he was released and claimed by the Patriots. And then when I go digging further, I see that Bennett was released with failure to disclose physical conditions. Apparently he has a shoulder injury that he's had the entire season. And
it hasn't shown to me.
No, I didn't. I'd never seen it. I mean, that could be part of his catching woes. I remember when he was in Chicago, he ate us up every year. And I remember a year he had 850 yards and 12 touchdowns or something crazy. So his catching, especially even in New England, I mean, he's had 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks back to back, and that done a whole lot receiving wise. But apparently, he wasn't honest with the Packers coming in about his injury and about his medical history with the shoulder, and could lead to him giving back some of his $6.3 million signing bonus. And he went out randomly and said, "Hey, this is probably my last year playing. I'm going to retire after this season." When he just signed a 3-year contract with us, so that was, I don't know. It was an exciting splash free agency move for Green Bay, but it did not turn out well. Obviously.
And Richard Rodgers is now
down like our season.
It's Richard Rodgers now as the starting tight end.
Richard Rodgers is starting tight end.
I've always liked Richard Rodgers.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I liked him before the Hail Mary in Detroit.
I thought, that
He's
year
got
when
great
y'all had
hands.
almost every receiver hurt, I mean, he was y'all's best receiver.
He started out
2 years ago?
Yeah. He started out in college, coming out of Cal as a receiver. As a tight end, they turned him into a receiver. And then actually his senior year, sophomore, junior year, he put up big numbers as a receiver. They turned him back into a tight end his senior year because the quarterback was running some read option there. And we decided to keep him as a tight end. He has the body, he's got the hands, he's got the athleticism. So I'm glad to have him back, have a pass-catching tight end back.
Well, speaking of tight ends, Jordan Reed,
going to catch the ball.
His hamstring injury, he did practice today, but he was limited. You think he's someone that the owner should start, or should they just roll with Vernon Davis?
I feel comfortable. It's hard with him because if
they do play Minnesota.
If Jordan Reed's going to play, Minnesota's not very well against tight ends, but he gets those red zone looks. Vernon Davis could be in the whole game, and then they get inside the 20, and here comes Jordan Reed jogging in to run a slant across the middle and catch this touchdown from Kirk Cousins. So it's hard to know with him, and I mean, from a fantasy perspective, people look at him like, oh, he's been a fantasy bust. He's always hurt. He's always injured. This guy's been through broken ribs, hamstring pull, shoulder.
He's like a walking piece of glass, it seems like, though.
Reconstructed his entire shoulder. He is one tough SOB. And this kid's out here playing. Last year I had him on my team when he played Dallas, and he dislocated his shoulder and finished the game and caught a touchdown pass. I mean, it's hard to question because I can't question this man's toughness. If he's active, I think I'll probably start him just because of the touchdown. Yeah. If they get in the red zone, he's coming in and they're targeting him.
That's one to watch, though, because I mean the Redskins are going to see how he looks in practice tomorrow to make a decision if he's going to play.
If he doesn't
or not.
play,
so,
obviously Davis.
Vernon Davis is the guy you're going to want to start. Yeah. If Reed plays, it's me. I feel like if Vernon Davis is good to go, that's a guy you're going to start. But if Jordan Reed's good to go, I mean, I'll be slightly iffy on wanting to start him though.
Well, yeah, and if Reed's going, you can do a lot worse than Vernon Davis. Even if Reed is starting, Vernon Davis is still putting up good numbers with Jordan Reed.
He's a great PPR tight end right now.
Oh yeah, he's eating yards up,
getting catches, eating yards.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to our games this week.
Sure,
we'll talk about the matchups.
Get it done.
All right, so Thursday night football is going on right now as we're recording this podcast.
Yep, 12-7.
12-7.
Cam Chancellor's running a pickback right now and just got tackled.
Mm-hmm. Is it about to go into halftime, it looks like?
Yep, 40 seconds left.
Good. Good God. I need a
dumpster fire.
Anyways, all right, so we'll talk about touching on to your Packers right now.
Sure.
So it's
Why
the
not?
Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears, 1 o'clock.
Make me cry.
Well, let's talk about relevant Packers players in terms of fantasy.
Is there any? Question number 1.
You know, at this point, I hate to say there's really not. At this point, I just feel like, yeah. So Brett Hundley is just
Brett Hundley.
I'm not like
I think
the situation.
I think he pieces it together a little bit more week and week, but it's still not where you want it. It's still not reliable to start in fantasy football. He has 2 rushing touchdowns, and that can help. But I don't think anyone's desperate enough to go out and start Brett Hundley, hoping he gets 150 passing yards and 50 rush yards and a rushing touchdown. You might get 10 points from him.
That's not going to help out.
No.
Aaron Jones.
I'm actually higher on Aaron Jones than some would suggest. Hurts with Brian Bulaga going out with a torn ACL. He's done for the season, so our offensive line takes a bit of a hit. But generally speaking, our offensive line has been a stronger point on our team as far as rushing the ball. And we have to run the ball. I mean, if Brett Hundley's struggling the way he's struggling, there's nothing more that we can do besides play good defense and run the ball. And obviously, we're not playing good defense. So, do you start Aaron Jones as a flex in the worst possible scenario, in my opinion? Yeah,
I mean, I would at least have him somewhat in the starting lineup because the Packers, coming out news out of that practice and stuff like that they're planning on having him and Montgomery, split the load. Basically, Jones be the early down back, and then Montgomery come in for your third down.
And I mean, I don't know that Chicago's going to put up a bunch of points on us. That's why I think Aaron Jones is a decent start this week. But going forward, if we're playing a high octane offense,
he did have a great game when they played the last time on the Thursday night earlier.
Oh,
this season.
He ate them alive. But
that's the game when Montgomery got hurt.
He was a little he was unknown then now, so I think he's scouted a little bit more now. It'll be tougher to do it twice in a row too. I mean, the Bears know what they're getting when they're coming this time.
Yeah,
and we're going to Soldier Field, hostile environment. I expect Brett Hundley to struggle, honestly, and.
Yeah, I think me personally, between the top two backs, I think Montgomery, I would sit him. I'm not buying into that right now, in terms of it, because I just don't feel like Hundley's going to get him the ball, because Montgomery's not going to be in the game enough to make a difference for anybody in terms of fantasy.
Yeah,
it's like the receivers right now too. Jordy's struggling in terms of because Hundley is struggling.
If you got to start one of the receivers, I think you do it with just kind of as a risky play because Mike McCarthy came out and said we're going to run the ball and we're going to chuck it. I'm going to he said he'd let Hundley have some more reign so Hundley can call a few plays at the line if he likes, and he told Hundley to keep his eyes up and his feet moving. So I think he's encouraging Hundley to wiggle out of some situations and take up if he has to, but he's also telling him to be afraid to unwind and uncork some deep balls. So if Nelson or Adams, which both of those guys were open, streaking down the field, and Cobb during one play, three different plays, all three of those guys at one point was wide open for probably what would have been a touchdown if Brett Hundley looks up and avoids the rush and throws the ball, which hurts. But knowing that these guys are still getting open and still doing what they should be doing, Brett Hundley's got to figure it out and get him the ball.
Out of those 3 receivers, though, for the Packers,
you might get a big play.
Out of those 3 receivers for the Packers, Cobb's been the more productive one with Hundley back there. Yeah. But in my opinion, I don't think any of them are really startable at this point.
It's really been Cobb, Adams, and Jordy, which is funny because the target share has been the complete opposite. The target share has been Jordy highest, then Adams, then Cobb.
Yeah.
But somehow
though last week, the last game, Nelson did have to deal with Slay.
Yeah.
So, Slay's been...
All right, he's not getting a Darius Slay this week, so Nelson probably is... I'm biased. I start Jordy Nelson if he's on my team.
Right. Me personally, I would sit any Packers receiver at this point. Same with any tight end now, which is Lance Kendricks.
Yeah, I wouldn't start tight ends.
Probably Richard Rodgers.
I'd give it a week to see what happens.
Yeah, and then Packers, I would string the Packers defense. I know they've been struggling as of late, but you never know. Rookie, you could
historically we play good against the Bears.
Yeah, and then plus against the rookie quarterback.
Trubisky's not very good against the blitz this season so far, so we'll see.
All right, so Bears players.
Yeah,
Mitch Trubisky. I wouldn't start him.
No.
Wouldn't touch him. Wouldn't add him to a fantasy team.
But geez, did Matt Stafford make it look easy last week?
But Matt Stafford is not, is not a rookie, and Mitch Trubisky is not Matt Stafford.
I agree.
So
Jordan Howard, I think, is a good start this week, as much as I hate to see it.
Yeah, Jordan Howard, he was my must start of the week for running backs, and I think he's a full steam ahead. You roll with this guy, jump on that train right there for this week because I think he's going to have a great week. I see Howard. Getting over 100 yards this week. I'm going to say he's going to get 2 touchdowns. I think he's going to be the main production player of the Bears offense.
I think he probably goes between 22 and 25 carries and
I think they're
right around 100 in the touchdown.
Yeah, I see a lot of touches for him this week. Tariq Cohen, I think he's just dwindled off ever since that hot start at the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
he hasn't really been someone. He was just I
think he was more of he was just a check down guy. Ever since Trubisky's come in, Trubisky's kind of.
Because he's just been less of a factor at this point.
Yeah.
And then any other Bears receiver, there's none I would start.
No.
None I would even consider.
Although I keep my eye on Dontrell Inman. He's a new ad from San Diego. It's not like he's a terrible receiver. San Diego just has so many good receivers that they were willing to trade one. So keep an eye on him, see what he does, and if he
gets in,
how
much play time he gets. But
his nickname
should improve though.
His nickname, his nickname in San Diego was Mr. Reliable. So he's a guy that's going to know the playbook, know his routes, and be where he needs to be.
Well, they're in LA now, so they probably forgot about him.
Yeah.
So and then Bears defense is a start for me. I just feel like, with Hundley back there, and
I agree.
Things aren't starting to gel. You got to start the Bears defense. It's a great stream option this week, in my opinion. Yeah. They haven't been playing bad the last few weeks at all either.
It's a sneaky good offense, a sneaky good defense. They're at home at Soldier Field. That's known to be a mushy field, a slow environment. And Brett Hundley's been prone to throwing interceptions. So I start the Bears defense with confidence.
Yeah, they are the ninth overall defense right now. In the last 4 weeks, Minnesota, they got 9 points. Baltimore, 16 points. Carolina, they got 30 points. And then last week against New Orleans in a loss, they got 10 points. So they haven't been playing bad at all.
52. Their last 3 home games, they've scored 52 points. So
defense,
start them. Yeah.
Yeah,
They've get nasty.
They're getting better. There's not many injuries on that Bears defense right now. But I see them disrupting.
Sure.
Brett Hundley.
Yeah.
All right, this one. Cleveland Browns at the Detroit Lions 1:00 game.
Boring.
Yeah, boring game. This is probably going to be a fiesta shootout for Matt Stafford and the Lions.
Kaiser will start. Kaiser will not finish. My bold prediction. Is that bold?
That's a bold prediction. I don't know if that's bold because it seems like it happens more every week or every other week. Kaiser, I'd sit. Isaiah Crowell, I would sit. I mean, he's just not, he's just never became the player that everyone thought he would be. Because, my opinion, I thought he was going to really kick it into gear because he had a tough schedule the first 4 weeks. Yeah. And I drafted him in our league.
Right.
I held on to him, waiting to see what happened.
Thinking that offensive line would be good this year.
Yeah, I mean, they had a stellar offensive line after free agency.
On paper.
Too. Yeah, on paper. And, but it doesn't help when Joe Thomas gets hurt either.
Yeah.
And so, Crowell hasn't been nothing. Duke Johnson, honestly, I like Johnson. He's a flex play for me.
Yeah.
But he's been he's been their best offensive player this whole season.
If you have him in PPR, you're pretty happy.
Yeah. Any Browns receiver, I wouldn't start this week just yet. No. They do, maybe in a couple weeks there might be something to consider with Corey Coleman coming back, and then who knows with this Josh Gordon stuff.
That's interesting. Josh Gordon interests me. I went and picked him up. I'm holding on to him. He's going to get my bench spot until he proves otherwise. Just because he's an all-world talent, and who knows? He's expected to come back week 12.
Yeah.
If he comes back, has a good tune-up game, and you got him for 3 games there in the playoffs or 4, then you're glad that you picked him up. So. Well, that's just my opinion.
I do like that comment where it said that he's all the stuff he used to do before games.
Oh, that's
his
funny.
Ritual. The drugs.
Go smoke weed, get drunk, and then go out and play. Yeah, I wonder if he can still do it. If he can still do it sober.
I wonder if he'll be better sober or if he'll be worse. Was he a better player with all the drugs?
I don't know. Just think of that hand-to-eye coordination, just running down the sideline, one-handed balls, drunk and high.
See, I wouldn't think that would help out with any of that at all.
No, me neither.
That would be the opposite.
Maybe if you get smashed over the middle, catching a slant,
smashed.
you just kind of shake it off I won't feel that till tomorrow. I'm sober.
All right,
if
so
you're even sober.
Browns tight ends, Browns defense, don't touch them.
No.
Don't think about playing them. I don't know why anybody would do that. I mean, I don't think there's
Possibly
been any,
Njoku could get a garbage time touchdown, but that's really the only option that he has.
depends who's quarterback, too.
And it depends who's quarterback, so
All right.
don't start him if not reliable.
Yeah. Lions this week, I would start. Matt Stafford is a top 5 quarterback for me this week, easily.
Yeah.
You start the guy, especially after last week's performance that he put up. Matt Stafford should have a field day this week, along with Golden Tate and Marvin Jones.
Matt Stafford broke my heart last week.
And you had to.
So, yeah, he's going to eat this week.
You're not used to this broken heart stuff with the
No,
Packers.
it sucks.
It hurts, doesn't it?
It does.
Now you know how I feel as a Rams fan for the last several years.
Hopefully we just draft another Hall of Fame quarterback and we can just keep living life its finest.
It's tough. Just as long as you don't bring in Jeff Fisher for something like that, you know. He'll just ruin
I think
the
it's safe
team
to
the
say
rest of the
Jeff
way.
Fisher will never coach in the NFL again.
I don't see any team considering
Maybe
him,
like an O-line coach or something.
You know,
I don't know.
Look, watch like the Cleveland Browns fire Hugh Jackson
And hire him back.
and then hire Jeff Fisher in
Good
for some
Lord.
reason.
Ugh.
Then
I hope
it would
not.
really be like the worst situation. You know how people always make fun of getting drafted by the Browns and your career's ruined pretty much.
Oh, it definitely would be.
You would,
Especially if you were an offensive player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Expect to throw like 50 yards a game or something like that.
It's terrible.
Amir Abdullah,
Mustache.
Theo Riddick.
I think it's going to be a roller coaster at running back this week. And the Browns are top 5 run defense. I don't start either one of them. I have Abdullah. I ain't starting.
Yeah. Kenny
want him.
Galladay, I'd sit. I feel like just production.
I do keep my eyes on him.
Yeah.
I mean,
you
you
gotta
don't-
watch him because you never know.
Yeah.
Like because I mean, if an injury happens to one of those top 2 receivers, Kenny Galladay is ready to step in.
And they don't have
T.J. Jones has been doing all right, but I mean, I don't see Galladay stepping above T.J. Jones right now anytime soon.
There's one thing that holds that offense back, and it's their red zone efficiency. Kenny Galladay first 2 weeks when he actually played had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah,
I
and he's
think.
still he's still nursing a hamstring injury right now too.
Yeah, if he gets over that hamstring injury and gets a push, you might want to keep your eye on Kenny Galladay because he's a big body and he lines up in that slot, and that's who they're looking for in the red zone.
Yeah.
When he's played, he showed that's his role.
And I like seeing him do that those first couple of games because it reminded me of my
And he's
favorite
got
player, Megatron.
Big plays too. So yeah, he was exciting to watch.
So-
I picked him up actually in the beginning of the season, thinking this guy's about to be a touchdown machine, and then that hamstring, got tight. So.
And that gets a lot of people, and it changes their seasons all around a lot. Tight ends for the Lions, I would sit. Eric Ebron is.
Did we? I missed the Jones and Tate. Did you?
I
speak
say
on
start him.
that?
They're gonna have a field day.
I think Golden Tate.
Stafford will throw. He will evenly throw the ball.
Marvin
to both
Jones
guys.
has been a sneaky good deep threat receiver this season.
Yeah, most leagues. What's crazy is, which I don't see how this happened, is that he was drafted late, or not drafted at all.
Right.
And
At least in 10-team leagues.
yeah, and I was wanting to get him as a late pick in our draft, and then Chris ended up getting him.
I mean, it's a good pick.
So, but it was a great pick. I mean, I knew he'd really start getting into steam because last year he started off picking up steam in the beginning of the season, then had like a little funk, and then kind of picked up just a little bit at the end, but it wasn't nothing to really brag about. But at the beginning of the year, he was like the number 1 receiver for a bit.
Right. And Tate's been good at getting those short passes and just
Turn it
creating
in, and
left and right.
And
So
he turns it into something.
come on, start him.
And Lions defense start.
Obviously.
I mean, they should have fun with that one.
Yeah.
All right, next
Guaranteed.
matchup is another similar one: the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Indianapolis Colts.
This one feels like a Steelers beatdown, but they're just on the road. Scares me. Even though it's an AFC team, they're not going very far. This should be a blowout. Brissett's kind of got some swag to him here lately.
I don't see it being a blowout. I mean, I do see Pittsburgh winning the game just because of them controlling the clock and their use of Le'Veon Bell, who just is a game changer. Same with Antonio Brown. Big Ben, he's a stream option for me. Yeah. I mean, he's a guy, like, for some reason, the guy's just lost all confidence in himself. He just hasn't been the same Big Ben. Would I start him this week? No, there's plenty of other quarterbacks like that or from off the waiver wire that I would pick up, like Josh McCown. I would definitely start Josh McCown. For some reason, I'm just a big fan of Josh McCown now.
He's been eating lately.
He is killing it. Josh McCown I would start over Big Ben. Big Ben is probably like a top 20 quarterback for me. Like he could have those big plays. Because especially with Vontae Davis gone now, Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster could have a field day. Those guys make plays.
Bryant's going to come back. He's an athletic freak. I think the Steelers win this one pretty decidedly. And their defense smothers Indianapolis.
Yeah, I mean, start the defense.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're, start Le'Veon Bell. I
And
mean,
like
you
we said,
shouldn't even ask if you should start Le'Veon Bell. That shouldn't even be a question. Same with Antonio Brown. Juju Smith-Schuster, I would put in my flex spot. I wouldn't throw him up there as like a wide receiver 1 or 2.
Right.
He's a flex spot at most just because of the volume that he gets, but he makes a big play.
Right.
That's the thing. He's a big play guy, but he only might get you like less than 5
Unless
targets.
you're in a super deep league.
Get a couple catches. Now, if you're in a deep league, you're going to throw the guy in there because that's what you might have as one of your top receivers.
Right.
So
T.Y. getting slow by this groin injury. He's really the guy that sets up their whole offense. So I don't see Colts offense doing it.
Steelers are great against the pass.
Stay away
They've
from
been
them.
good against the pass this year. Brissett, I would sit like as much. I would like if this is one of those weeks where you're looking for a stream option. Like if you have no Carson,
I don't think I start any.
Of course, I don't see why anybody would start Joe Flacco as their main quarterback. But you got Derek Carr on a bye. Then you have Wentz on a bye this week. Those are probably the 2 quarterbacks that most people have as their QB1s because no one's got Flacco as their other quarterback. And then Alex Smith is another one too.
Right.
So Brissett might be a stream option for you if you're one of those people that just rolls with one quarterback, or if Brissett is your backup quarterback.
High risk, low reward. So.
Yeah. So I mean, it's at home. This is what helps. It's at home.
Yeah. So
you just never know like how he's going to show up. I just feel like the Pittsburgh defense is going to just disrupt him enough. I think T.Y. Hilton, this groin injury is he's not going to have a big game. No. I know people were like excited about after the game last week, but he's got a tough stretch coming up. They got the Steelers game this week. They're on a bye next week, and then they just have a miserable schedule the rest of the way in terms of teams that allow points against receivers because it's not a friendly way. They got Jacksonville. There's Denver's there, and it's just not pretty for T.Y. Hilton. Marlon Mack, I would sit Marlon Mack. He's too much of a hiccup guy.
All of them.
Frank Gore, I hate this. I hate on him so much. He's a flex play at most for me, just because he's Frank Gore, and they will give him the ball. They give him the carries. The guy can be 100 years old, and they'll still give him 15 carries a game. Frank the Tank still rolls with it, but he's a flex play at most for me, just because of the volume that he gets. And Jack Doyle, start Jack Doyle just because he's been their target machine. They throw the ball to him like it's nothing. Brissett loves Jack Doyle.
I'm going to say if you don't have a tight end, start Jack Doyle, and if you have 2,
if he's out there,
I would start the other guy.
Yeah, if he's out there,
if he's out there, pick him up because he's going to.
Yeah, he's
going to be fine coming
there.
down the stretch, but I don't start him against Pittsburgh.
Right, and the Colts defense, I wouldn't even start at all. No. I wouldn't even consider it. They are in a bad situation.
They're terrible anyway.
Yeah, and they just haven't been good all year. Like everybody's just been running all over them. So
they just released Davis. It's going to be a big distraction.
Yeah, I mean, with tight ends not playing good this year, Doyle, just to go back on Doyle, Doyle's been good the last handful of weeks. Week 6, 9 points. Jacksonville was a tough matchup, but he still got 44 yards out of it, and that's all I got. And then the game against Cincinnati, 121 yards, 1 touchdown. Great week right there. Then Houston, he had 63 yards. Houston's usually not good, or they usually play pretty good against tight ends. Yeah. And that's pretty good for a tight end to do, is 6.3 points against them. So I think the Colts lose that game probably by I'm gonna say 12 points. I'm gonna say it's gonna be.
I'll say 17.
I'm gonna say it's not gonna be 3 touchdowns. It's not gonna be a 3 touchdown difference, but I mean I wouldn't be surprised. No, just because you never know.
Pittsburgh has been kind of building.
Know when Big Ben shows up.
Pittsburgh's been building. I wouldn't be surprised if this was the game where he just blew up. But I don't know. Colts played tough last week, so we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Next game: the Los Angeles Chargers at Jacksonville Jaguars.
Chargers are tough. Historically speaking, they come out of a bye these last 8 weeks and they just rip ass for the rest of the teams. I'm kind of just. I don't think it's going to happen against Jacksonville. At Jacksonville, they're going. That's a long way to travel, and you're going to play the number 1 defense against the pass. And they just got Marcel Darius too to help shore up the run game. It's just I think the Chargers have been struggling anyway, so they come out. I for some reason when I pictured the game plan, I pictured the plan being built around running the ball and then pass action to Hunter Henry with a little Keenan Allen sprinkled in, and then a couple deep balls thrown to Tyrell Williams and not Kelvin Benjamin, but
I don't see Jalen Ramsey shadowing on Keenan Allen. I see because the Chargers like to move Keenan Allen around a lot, like throw him in the slot, throw him on the outside on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
He'll probably get, they'll be matched up a few of the times over there. But like you said, Gordon is going to be Gordon. He should have a good game because Jacksonville is not
I'm counting on him to do it.
Stopping the run. But like you said with the Marcel Darius trade, that should help them out a little bit more. And then Hunter Henry, I think that's a good option this week. Phillip Rivers, I'm not a fan of starting him this week, but the thing is though, you never
it's Phillip Rivers.
It's Phillip Rivers
that's
though,
hard. But their offensive line has been struggling too.
Yeah, it's at that point again of the season where that offensive line gets hurt for them.
Yeah, and they have pass rushers galore, and how you get the ball down the field if you don't have enough time to throw the ball down the field.
Yeah, Jacksonville's defense to me is like one of those near perfect defense because I don't think anybody at the beginning of the season everyone was like playing the wait and see approach with Jacksonville's defense. That's what everybody said.
I picked them
and
up.
And then Jacksonville's and they were on my team once too. And I don't know why. I think I had them.
It's Jacksonville.
I think I had them the week they sucked against Tennessee.
Oh yeah. They scored like
-1
point maybe, or was it -1?
Yeah. But after that, since then, they've just been killing it.
Right.
So I think to me, Jacksonville's almost a near perfect defense this year, like with how they played.
Yeah.
And there's a reason Jacksonville's actually has a winning record, and it's because of that defense. And they've been
Fournette.
and Fournette's been helping out the offense a lot too.
Burrow's actually been pretty mistake-free too, so.
He hasn't been the worst.
But he hasn't. He's only thrown 15 passes a game.
Right, he hasn't been Eli Manning or Brian Hoyer or how he was.
Or
how Deshaun Kaiser's a rookie, so I'm not going to knock him.
I don't start Rivers unless I'm really in a bad pinch. Melvin Gordon, I start with confidence, thinking he'll get something.
You should never question Gordon whether you should start him or not.
He should be your first round pick.
He should always be starting no matter what.
Keenan Allen, I sit unless you think.
If you're in standard, I would sit Keenan Allen. If you're in PPR, I would consider
the same thing,
Keenan Allen is like a wide receiver 2 or a flex. He's not a touchdown guy at all. He only has 1 touchdown on the season, but he does get the catches. He gets the receptions, but he doesn't go crazy in the yards. And in this game, I don't see him breaking 100 yards. He could have 60 yards, and he could have 7 catches.
Yeah.
And I think that's a normal Keenan Allen game, just because how they have him play. Being a safety option for Phillip Rivers, throwing in the middle of the field, not too far out and stuff like that. Travis Benjamin's the deep threat, but that's all he is.
I don't start him. I don't think they have enough time to let him get down the field to throw it with that pass rush and the offensive line woes. Hunter Henry, I think I probably start just because of the tight ends this year.
Yeah.
And he's been hot lately. And I think he's their best target because those 2 outside receivers, those 2 outside corners they have are tough. Either with Hunter Henry, they have that little linebacker, Telvin.
Yeah, Telvin.
Right, yeah. Super quick, great coverage linebacker. So you're still getting, Hunter Henry's probably getting double teamed. So I think he's probably their best bet to get offensive production. I don't start their defense. They've been bad against the run. That's what Jacksonville does. Blake Bortles does just enough to move the chains. Yeah. They're going to get pounded. Don't start their defense.
So Jacksonville's offense, Fournette's been showing up to practice at all the meetings. He even put a tweet out the other day, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
He said, "Didn't miss this," or made sure, or I made it on time.
Yeah, I seen that too.
And that was pretty. I thought that was pretty funny. Bortles, I would possibly consider him as a low-end quarter QB1 this week.
He's a guy that if you have some bye weeks or you look at in the waiver wire, I know in both of my leagues that I'm in on the NFL Network, he's in both of them. So if you need a quarterback, he's probably a pretty safe bet against Chargers defense. They got a pretty good pass defense, but Fournette can open up a lot of the field for you.
Yeah, it helps,
And Marquise Lee was productive last week. So
he gets the receptions, and then Allen Hurns.
He does. I was wrong on Lee. Lee's been better than advertised.
Yeah.
PPR especially.
Yeah, and Hurns is one of those guys that's like he'll get a big play, but that's I don't expect more out of that. He does. I don't think the volume's there enough for him to consider him as a start this week.
Yep.
And Leonard Fournette must start. Blake Bortles, consider it if you are needing a quarterback. I wouldn't start him. If you're in a deeper league, start him. But other than that, if you got one of the 4 quarterbacks that are out on a bye, which I still don't know why you would have Joe Flacco as your starting quarterback, but
you don't.
Yeah, you don't. So Jacksonville's defense always a must start.
Start 'em
from here until the end of time
at home.
Yes,
the Chargers. Come on.
All right, moving on to the next game. The New Orleans Saints at the Buffalo Bills.
This is an interesting matchup for me, watching the Bills get run on all last week and knowing that the Saints have Calvin Kamara and Mark Ingram.
Which I think they have a lot more better running back combo, in my opinion, than the Jets do. The Jets had fun. Forte had fun. It was his coming out party for the season.
It was.
But Forte's banged up. He's older. Mark Ingram can bang and doesn't get hurt like he used to. For some reason, Mark Ingram has just figured out how to not get hurt.
His vision and just awareness is amazing.
It's fun to watch. Kamara is a fun player to watch.
Some of the moves that he makes and his quick jukes, like, he's special.
He stretches the play.
He's special, yeah.
Yeah, he helps out. So both running backs,
explosive.
running backs, I would start.
Yes. No, hands down.
Yeah, Drew Brees, you got to start. You're going to start Drew Brees.
Bills have been very tough on quarterbacks.
Yeah, and Drew Brees has been struggling a little bit as of late.
Yeah, and Thomas with that struggling with that injury.
But I would still start
may be
Thomas.
tempered, but you can't set Drew Brees. It's Drew Brees.
You can't.
It doesn't matter who he's
know
playing.
which Drew Brees is going to.
But historically, this has been his worst season in the last 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's on pace to throw less than 30 touchdowns, and he's not even on pace to get his 5,000 yards this year, which is insane.
Yeah, it's just because everything's been going to the running backs.
Their backs are so talented. How do you not just let them win you the game? And Drew Brees, come on, Drew Brees is a glorified. I can't even call him a game manager. He can win you only need him to be a game manager, except he's a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They have a success to go deep into the NFC.
Yeah.
So I start.
I do like the Saints though.
I start Ingram. I start Kamara.
You start Drew Brees. You start both running backs, Ingram and Kamara. Yeah. I mean, you shouldn't question it.
Right.
Michael Thomas, watch for the ankle injury. See what happens on Friday during practice.
I like Ted Ginn. His speed has been a problem for people.
I like Ted Ginn in the flex spot. That's as high as him because he doesn't get that much looks, but he makes a big play.
He did last week. He had 12.
Yeah.
Had over 100 yards.
Yeah. I mean, Willie Snead's not going to be a fantasy relevant anytime soon.
Ted Ginn has been playing. He's almost like Benjamin Button. He started his season out drop prone.
I had him as one of my sleepers early before the season
career
started. He was listed as one of my sleeper players this year.
Yeah, me too.
And I told one of our fellow league players, Ray, to draft him. Ray did, but Ray doesn't. We have a few guys that just don't pay attention to their stuff. And unfortunately, this guy's one of them. He was one of our better team players last year, but that was his only good season he's had.
Ginn has been his career started just up and down. It's super inconsistent.
But this is his best quarterback he's ever played with, too.
Very, very, very speedy receiver. I mean, he was a part of that Carolina team that went to the playoffs. I mean, he caught deep ball to deep ball to deep ball for Cam Newton. He could do the same in this offense. I like his speed. I start taking.
It's crazy. He's still
as a receiver
as
too.
Older guy.
Yeah.
So
he's
Kobe
blazing.
Fleener, I would sit because they just haven't been looking at the tight end no more.
And the Bills are tough against tight ends. The Bills are tough all around against the pass. So.
Yeah. Saints defense, I would sit Saints defense this week. I just don't. I think they've been losing steam a little bit as of late. I mean,
and they're going up north to play at Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
I give it to the home team. I don't start the defense.
Buffalo players, Tyrod Taylor, start him. I think he's been playing consistent throughout this whole entire season. He's not going to be that. Last week, I mean, even in a losing effort,
he put
up
up 30 on our
points.
team. Yeah, so
but I would start him. He just because he can run the ball. He's a great game manager. He's a better passer than people give him credit to.
I think Buffalo's offense also matches up with the Saints' defense well because really the Saints their defense starts with Lattimore and shutting down the team's number one receiver. Mm-hmm. But guess what? The Bills don't have one, so joke's on you. I mean, they're going to throw to the tight ends, they're going to run the ball, and then between McCoy, Taylor, and I guess it might be Charles Clay this week.
He's set to return, is what they're saying.
That's going to be their offense.
So I mean,
Zay Jones sprinkled in.
I don't think Benjamin's not ready yet.
I think Benjamin might. I think he might have a couple plays. No. Did Zay Jones get bunched up?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Let me just double check. He
had his touchdown last week. I was excited for him.
But like right after that, it was like a knee injury, I believe.
Oh, that sucks. Hopefully he's not hurt.
Yeah, he hasn't practiced at all. It's his ankle.
Zay.
He wasn't present for Thursday's practice. Jones has open Week 10 preparations with absence back-to-back practices, which I don't think he's going to be able to play. I think he's going to be out for sure.
That sucks.
Yeah. Even if he's able to shake off the injury, I don't think he's going to be able to really do much. He's going to be much of a factor.
Ooh, I said his leg buckled. Looked pretty nasty. That's not good.
Yeah, it didn't look pretty. I remember watching.
But he returned to the game. But hey, so did Fournette before he was out 2 weeks. So
yeah. All right, but LeSean McCoy, you're always going to start him.
I'll start him.
He is that offense though. He helps.
You start him knowing that McCoy
he's the coal
McCoy.
in that train.
You start him knowing McCoy's McCoy. He had a bad game last week. He's kind of been up and down this season, but when he's up, he's up. So this is if he continues the trend, this is his week to be up.
Yeah, Charles Clay, I'd stash him. If you're one of those if you need a guy this week, I would start him. See what he does. Bills defense, I would sit this week though. I don't think the Bills defense is going to do much. They're injured. Obviously after like what we said last week, they're banged up. McCown had a good game against them. He didn't go off, but it wasn't a pretty performance by that defense at all. And they're just banged up.
They're still trying to find out how to replace that big run stuffer that left, I think. So they'll be a little bit better against the run. I still think the Saints run rampant on them because the Saints just run rampant on everyone. So teams with strong running games are not good to start a defense against. Don't start Buffalo's defense.
Yeah, I think the Saints get that game. Even on
I
the
agree.
road, I think they get that game just because they manage the game
and they win
possession.
I think it's a 10-point or less loss.
Yeah.
All
right. This one. New York Jets at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
It's your game.
Revenge game for McCown.
Go ahead. Get on the choo-choo. The McCown train's coming
jumping
through.
On the train for Josh McCown.
You are the conductor of this train.
I'm on it, but you know what? He's not even on my fantasy team.
He's out there.
Go
get him.
But being the biased guy that I am, I decided to finally pick up Jared Goff.
Oh.
And I am starting Jared Goff over Kirk Cousins this week in our league. Anyways, Josh McCown, start the guy against Tampa Bay's terrible, 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 terrible defense.
Yeah. Their whole mentality, I think, is just going to be like, we don't have Jameis. We don't have Mike Evans. Our defense is hurt and sucks.
Yeah, and
what
you're not going to rely on Fitzpatrick getting the ball to Deshaun Jackson at all.
No, I don't.
So, but sticking with the Jets right now, Matt Forte's been nursing an ankle injury or a knee injury right now. And basically he's someone to watch for. If he does end up playing, I would start him this week. But basically, either running back, but for the Jets, if it's Powell or Matt Forte, start them this week.
Start him if you got him.
Elijah McGuire is a deep flex, so he's like if you're in a deep league and you have him, consider him.
Super deep.
Consider him. Robbie Anderson, a must start.
Yeah, I agree.
When do you say that? Do you ever say? I don't think anybody ever says that.
After the last 2 weeks, you have to.
You have to. He's getting the ball.
He's on a
making
roll
plays,
right now.
and he's rolling.
And he's getting the targets.
Clicking.
He's getting the targets.
He's getting the targets. Same with Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Start the guy.
I'm
Jets,
licking my chops this matchup. I got Seferian-Jenkins, and I'm loving it.
And the Jets' defense is a great stream option this week too.
I agree.
I just think Fitzpatrick is going to be a turnover machine. I think I'm going to. How about this? I'm going to make a little bet.
Oh gosh.
Fitzpatrick.
How many?
Over or under 3 interceptions.
Under.
Under?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna say what, 2?
I might go bold. I'm gonna say 1. I'm gonna go bold. Fitzpatrick, the old Stanford degree.
Oh, Fitzmagic.
He's gonna take care of the football.
All right. Tampa Bay's players.
I like to play devil's advocate.
I'm not going to start Ryan Fitzpatrick. I wouldn't touch him.
No, me neither.
I wouldn't touch him. Doug Martin is flex play. You have to get him going for him to actually be considered a must start. And they haven't really been
Jets
getting him
have been
going.
good against running backs too.
Yeah.
Sneaky good against running backs.
Mike
Doug
Evans
Martin
is out.
Has been struggling too.
He's suspended after doing a hockey check on Lattimore and just mauling him. Deshaun Jackson, I think you had to start him just because of the opportunity.
He's probably going to get the volume.
The opportunity's there.
Right.
You got to start Jackson. Cameron Brate, start him because
I think Brate's going to be the
Fitzpatrick. He will throw to his tight end.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the biggest
throw to his tight end.
I think him and OJ are going to get involved more than.
But I think Brate between him and OJ. Howard, I think Brate is going to be the more productive one. Howard, he had the one, the good week. I just don't think enough volume's there for him to get. Because I think it's just going to be a force-fed game to Jackson and Brate pretty much for the most time. Adam Humphries might actually be
Humphries ain't bad.
a decent play. I
Yeah,
think he's a
not
flex
bad
play.
receiver.
He's not at all.
He's going to get. I mean, this is an opportunity. If you look at it from his standpoint, he's thinking, "Oh my gosh, how many games have I been in and played and got the targets?" So he's coming in knowing he's part of the game plan. And if I'm Humphreys, I'm thinking I got to make.
I think he's a sneak play this week.
Yeah, me too.
I think he's a sneak play this week. Buccaneers defense, don't touch them. Don't even think about them.
Mm-mm.
I would take the Cleveland Browns defense over.
If I could kick them off the waiver wire, I would do that. Like, just not even available.
Yeah, I would take Cleveland's defense over the Buccaneers.
Kick them out in the space.
All right. Next game.
So mean.
Yeah, that's very mean. That's very mean. You're not getting tickets to any of their games at all coming up. The next game, Minnesota Vikings at the Washington Redskins. Let's start with the Vikings.
Game.
Let's start. Yeah, this is an interesting game.
This is a playoff potential game.
Yeah,
actually.
6-2 Minnesota.
Potentially.
Yeah. Redskins coming off that W over the Seattle
Seahawks.
All right, so let's see. Case Keenum.
I
think he's a low-end stream this week.
I'm interested to see it.
I think he has to game manage. He has to game manage pretty much this week.
He's been a pretty good game manager. He's been good.
Yeah, I mean he's not bad.
Can't take it away from him.
But I mean he's a good. What are you reading?
I just look up Diggs just to see how he's doing this week.
Yeah.
And here's his injury. Diggs, in parentheses, tooth, was a limited participant at Thursday's practice.
That's tough.
He must have a molar back in there.
Root canal.
Wow. Hope it's not a cavity.
Got his wisdom teeth pulled.
Oh.
All right, so Case Keenum.
That's terrible.
Case Keenum, I would consider Case Keenum against Minnesota. For Minnesota. Then I would sit Latavius Murray. I don't think he's going to be the factor this week. I think this is going to be one of those weeks where Jarrett McKinnon has a good game again. McKinnon is to me, he's a high-end RB2, flex play at minimum. I would start him. Diggs
has more value. I think McKinnon gets more touches.
This
is
going to be a good offensive game, I think, for both teams. But I would start McKinnon. I would start Diggs. I would start Adam Thielen. I would start Kyle Rudolph because it's a great matchup for tight ends for this week. Washington is not good against tight ends. Vikings defense, I would start this week. I think they're going to have, after being on the bye, it'll be a good matchup for them. Kirk Cousins has just been shaky the last couple of weeks, but it's been bad conditions. The rainy game against Dallas, he didn't have a bad game. It just wasn't a big statistical game. And then the one against the Seahawks last week wasn't a pretty game either, though.
And you got to think he's also going. They're at home, which is to their favor, but he's also still without 3 of his starting linemen. So that's a big deal against Minnesota pass rush and Minnesota defense in Virginia. They're a very good defense. They're not a great fantasy defense, but they're a very good, real football defense. You don't want to play the Minnesota Vikings. I think Kirk Cousins actually might struggle some this week.
Last week showed for that too with the injured lineman as well too. Yeah. And so Kirk Cousins, I would sit this week. Rob Kelly, I would sit him. He just is a touchdown dependent running back now. Chris Thompson, you're going to start.
Thompson, I start.
Thompson, you start. He has been the better running back out of that backfield. He has won it. He might not be your first, second down running back, but he'll come in there on first and second down. But he's a great pass catching running back, decent runner, but he's the best running back on that team. Any receiver on the Redskins, I wouldn't start. No Terrell Pryor, no Jamison Crowder, who's banged up. Doxson.
Maybe Doxson.
Doxson, I don't know.
He's the only one that
Vikings defense, I wouldn't consider him.
He's the only. Well, if I'm thinking of all their receivers,
I think he's their best receiver, though.
If I'm thinking of all their receivers, he edges out the rest of them. I mean, Crowder's might get more targets, but he's catching screens and slants, and it's not going anywhere. Doxson's getting the ball down the field, making plays like a first-round pick should. So I think Doxson is the only guy that's you're looking at there. But you also got Redskins' defense is kind of a sneaky play there because they did very, very well against Russell Wilson-led offense in Seattle. So, I mean, they're a very good defense in the NFC. So I agree with all the starts for the Vikings, but I temper expectations because of that defense.
Yeah, and if Vernon Davis is the starter, start him.
Yeah.
I like Vernon Davis this week. If Jordan Reed plays...
Yeah, we touched on that.
If Jordan Reed plays, flip a coin.
Yeah.
Flip a coin. That's what I'm going to just tell you. But I would consider Jordan Reed, as much as I don't want to. It's just you really got to...
It's Jordan Reed.
It's Jordan Reed, though. I mean, that's the thing, like you were saying, Vernon Davis could be that guy that gets all the looks. Because Vernon Davis is going to play regardless. It's just whether or not he starts or not. Redskin defense, I would set Redskins defense this week. I just don't think the matchup's there for them. I think
they're at home.
They're going to move everybody around enough on that Minnesota offense to disrupt Thielen and Diggs. They just rotate between the slot area, and they should have a field day.
They're at home, and in order for them to even be in this game, that defense has to play lights out, and I think they do. So I temper expectations. I don't know that you start them unless you're in a deep league, and a lot of those big name defenses are out. Like if you have Chiefs defense or Ravens or Eagles, you don't have the Raiders defense. If you have one of those top 3 defenses and you need someone and Washington's out there, they haven't been a bad play this season. So maybe you start them if you need to. My opinion.
Yeah. All right then. This will be the last game we talk about in this episode.
Sure.
And then in tomorrow's episode, we'll talk about the rest of the matchups. So the last game we'll talk about is the last 1 o'clock game. We'll talk about the Cincinnati Bengals at the Tennessee Titans.
Okay.
So Andy Dalton.
Mm-hmm.
He has A.J. Green this week. A.J. Green did not get suspended. He only got fined $42,000.
Only.
For his
That's good Lord. That's almost what I make a year. Well, that's almost what I make a year.
It's more than I make a year.
Wow. A.J. Green got fined for
taking someone down for Andy Dalton?
Salary.
Do you like Andy Dalton's matchup against this Tennessee Titans defense?
They're at Tennessee, and Tennessee defense, they play better when Mariota's on the field. But I have a soft spot for the Red Rifle and A.J. Green, and I think he's good for 18 points. 15 maybe if you're in standard with no bonuses. I don't see Andy Dalton going crazy, but I don't see him being nobody either.
Because so far this fantasy season, he's had 2 top 5 performances, and the rest of his other performances this season have been outside the top 14.
Yeah.
But both those 2 top 5 performance games came in favorable matchups, one against the Browns and the other against the Colts.
Yeah, I don't really.
I feel like Andy Dalton at this point right now, because what hurts him is that offense, losing a lot of those guys on the offensive line has hurt Andy. Showed that how important it is to have an offensive line in football, and their offensive line has been less than average this whole season.
They haven't been able to run the ball, so I don't think the Bengals do a lot against Tennessee, but I think Tennessee wins the game. Mariota's been flawless. And I don't see the Bengals offense doing a whole lot.
No, and I mean, I know Mixon will give you the better running back. But
start Green.
You start A.J. Green.
I think you can.
Tyler Kroft you can stream because I think they will throw to him because he's been his volume's been increasing in the last few weeks. Bengals defense I would sit.
Don't set their defense. I don't really set any of their running backs. Maybe Mixon's touchdown dependent, and Dalton only if you need to.
Yeah. So it's just a weird matchup. I feel like it's one of those trap game matchups in terms of if you're expecting the Bengals to have a good performance. I'm not seeing it this week. AJ Green is AJ Green. You're not going to sit AJ Green at all. It's like you were saying last week. AJ Green is a superstar. You don't sit superstars.
Exactly.
Tyler Kroft. I do like Tyler Kroft.
I do too.
I like him a lot. I would start Tyler Kroft. I mean, he could be a stream option for you if you have one of your, if one of your tight ends are on a bye, which would probably be like if you have Travis Kelce.
Well, he's kind of up and coming. He might even be a starter for some teams.
I think he's getting to that point.
Yeah, me too.
I think he's getting to that point, especially down the stretch too.
Yeah.
But I don't like any of the Bengals running backs really this week too much. Mixon's probably the only one you would probably consider. I see him as an RB2 at most, flex play for sure. But onto the Tennessee side of the ball, Mariota. You know what? I don't really like Mariota's matchup this week. I don't think it's a great matchup. He hasn't really been the stud that you would thought he would have been this season.
He hasn't been the super playmaker. He's still kind of a set and duck with that injury, but
I mean the Bengals.
He's been very accurate and very smart with where he goes with the ball. So it's been hard for defenses to really
I wouldn't expect a big performance from Mariota too, because the Bengals allow the third fewest passing yards in a game, which they average just to be 203 yards a game. They only allow.
But the good thing, I think they're going to try to lean on that run game they have, and
they're going to try.
I think this is the week it punches through.
I would like to see it happen, but it just DeMarco Murray. You know what? I would probably consider DeMarco Murray an RB2. Well, actually, no. I'm gonna just drop it down more. Flex play. DeMarco Murray is a flex play. I would sit Derrick Henry this week. I wouldn't consider Derrick Henry. I would like to see them rebound, but I don't think it's going to happen this week. Corey Davis, not yet. He's not ready yet to be a starter in your lineups yet. Rashard Matthews, he had the big game last week. I would consider him as a flex play this week.
Henry?
No, Rashard Matthews. Henry's a sit for me. I just don't think it's all going to be there. But I'm looking at Twitter right now, just like right when I popped up Twitter. Martellus Bennett, and I quote, "This shit crazy, bruh. WTF, wow." What Martellus tweeted out 2 hours ago.
Wait. This shit crazy.
Bruh. WTF, wow.
Lots of U's and H's there.
Yeah, so,
it's tough because it's who's going to get the touchdown. Last week it was Henry. This week could be DeMarco.
Mm-hmm.
That backfield's a mess. They're both getting.
It's not the backfield you would thought it would be. I would have thought this would have been the two-headed monsters what they have, but it's just not panning out like how you would thought it would be.
I think it's broken down into like thirds.
Mm-hmm.
I think Marco gets 2/3 of the carries. No, I don't even know if it's maybe fifths. He gets 3/5 of the carries, and then Derrick Henry gets the other 2/5.
Yeah,
it's pretty even. Henry's just a little bit behind, but Henry's been there. He's been the guy coming in the red zone. And been like their big smash mouth, get it in. So
Eric Decker, I wouldn't consider. He hasn't practiced. He didn't practice on Thursday.
No.
He's out with the illness at the moment right now.
I think you roll with Matthews.
We'll see what happens on Friday with him. But if you're in a deep league, you'd probably need to consider Decker. I mean, he had a decent game last week. He had the 21 yards and a touchdown, but that's a decent Eric Decker game at this point now. I think he's slowly starting to fade out a little bit in that offense. Like he's still going to be active, but he's slowly starting to fade out.
Matthews is there. I'm gonna be at this place at this time, and you can depend on me, guy. And he's a good red zone target for my Marcus Mariota. So I start Matthews actually with confidence. Corey Davis is one of those big play guys you start just because he's he's superstar talent, but fantasy wise, he hasn't been a superstar
just
yet.
Not yet.
But
it's going to happen.
So close to breaking out.
It's going to happen.
Not happened yet. So,
Delaney Walker, start him.
Expectations.
I think you start Delaney Walker.
Yeah,
you have to. You got to start Delaney Walker. And Titans defense, I would sit. I don't think Titans defense have any fantasy relevance at all.
Yeah, I agree.
So I mean, we'll see. This could be one of those defensive battles too. I don't see. This might not even be a high scoring game. Like if it does, it's a surprise to me. But I see this being one of those games where it's like 20,
actually, there's a chance that Delaney Walker doesn't play. As of today, he didn't practice because of an ankle injury, and it's a bone bruise in his ankle.
That's been nagging him though too.
Hoping he practices tomorrow so he can play.
Yeah,
but he's the kind of guy that wouldn't even need. He would need to do maybe a light walkthrough to be able to play.
Right. I mean, he's an older veteran, so I mean they're not going to try to rush him back in there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would if he plays, consider him because Delaney Walker still gets the volume from Mariota. He had 71 yards last week against the Baltimore Ravens. But in terms of who I think wins that game, I think I'm going to say I think the Titans pull it off.
I think Titans win by 17.
That much?
Yep.
I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be one of those 17-13 games. One of those. And I think the Titans get it right there. All right, so that's the end of the Thursday night podcast. We will talk more tomorrow about the rest of the matchups from the 4 o'clock games on to the Monday night game. And that's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Wrap it up.